Hello again, everybody. I trust you're all doing well today. Welcome to another Sunday School preview. Today we are going to be looking at the theme that is coming up, the Messiah's universal reign. That is broken down into three subsections. First, the majesty of the Messiah. Second, the Messiah's reign over the nations. And finally, the Lord is exalted. You'll be having some scriptures to explore as you seek to understand these different sub-themes. Looking at the first one, the majesty of the Messiah King, you will be exploring Psalm 45, verses 1 to 8. And as you do that, I want to tell you something about the idea of the Messiah. So the idea of the Messiah comes from the Hebrew word or Hebrew term Mashiach, which means the anointed one. There are various variations of that depending on whether or not you're looking at the verb or the noun or an adjective. But if you're looking at the verb, it will be talking about anoint, and that will allow you to understand that not all uses of the Messiah in the Old Testament were particularly referring to or pointing to Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the true Messiah. They had different ideas. There were different anointed ones like David, other kings who were called Messiah. You could say common Messiah. But clearly in Psalm 45, the psalmist was talking about what I could say is the capital M, Messiah, Jesus Christ. And as your teachers bring you through this lesson, you will see that this Messiah is described as gracious and blessed. He is also described as glorious and victorious. This Messiah is powerful and victorious over all his enemies. So that's the first sub-theme that you will be looking at. The second one is also very important, the Messiah's reign over the nations. And your teachers will point you to Psalm 47. Psalm 47. And of course you will see that this Messiah, which is Christ, and Christus is the equivalent of Mashiach, and of course Christ is the English equivalent. But this Messiah you will find in this text and all over the Bible. This Messiah will reign over all the nations. He will have power, he will have dominion over all of the kingdoms, and that is why he will be described or called King of all kings. It is quite literal. He will be king over every single king because he will establish his dominion over all the nations and over all of the kingdoms. Now this idea, of course, you can go back to Daniel, you can go back to you can go to Revelation, and you can even go to Philippians chapter 2 and other areas that talks about his dominion over all humankind. Now the final idea is that the Lord is exalted, and all of these quite clearly tie together to describe or to express the theme, the Messiah's universal reign or universal reign. So the Lord is exalted. Christ, of course, if you read through the New Testament, you would see, as I mentioned a while ago, Philippians chapter 2, where Paul describes him as someone who is in all sense God, but he put aside or laid aside his divine rights, so to speak, and he became a servant. He pulled on to himself the vulnerabilities of man, and therefore God the Father has highly exalted him and given him a name above every single name. And so you will realize that he will not just simply have authority and power over all the nations, but you will see that he will be lifted up in the eyes of everybody. He will be exalted. The Christ that they knew in the New Testament, he will be lifted up, and all eyes will see that, he's no longer simply a suffering servant, but he's, of course, the reigning king. And so your teachers will help you to understand this sub-theme, where Christ is exalted, and of course his exaltation comes after him being crucified. So he was crucified, he humbled himself, he was crucified, and he was lifted up. And in Revelation, when you read Revelation, you will see that this Son of Man, going back to Daniel again, this Son of Man that Daniel saw, he will be lifted up. The Ancient of Days will give him the power, or will declare him King of Kings and Lord of Lords over every single kingdom, including the kingdom of darkness, including the kingdom of Satan. And so this should be a very fruitful lesson for you as you explore one of the most important topics of the Old Testament and the New Testament, that is the reign of the Messiah. God bless you. Take care.